Mm.
Are you all ready to join me today in our trip to outer space?
Come along quietly or not.
I will talk to you of art, for there is nothing else. Some artist will bait a hook
Yes.
and let you bite upon it.
Classy. And now, without further ado,
Hello, folks, and welcome to another episode of the Planet Shivers podcast. I'm Albert Shivers, and I'm excited for this episode today. My special guest on this episode is Amber Balcaen, Canadian race car driver who's come all the way down from Winnipeg to live in Charlotte, North Carolina, the NASCAR hub, to pursue her dream of motorsports. She grew up in a motorsports family, and she's let nothing stop her from climbing up the ladders of NASCAR, and she has a big announcement on this episode. But before we get to Amber, I have a couple of updates for you guys. First of all, a couple of new episodes of Insomnia Art are up right here on my YouTube channel. I've begun working a little bit more with ink in terms of using it as a paint. Instead of using paint, I'm using ink. It's a very different consistency, and it lends itself to creating a different process for the art. You can see updates on the new pieces I'm doing on my Instagram at Albert Shivers. It's that easy. Secondly, this coming weekend, I'm going to be part of the Create and Be Art Gallery's Black History Month show. The show is in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, run by Courtney and Sylvia, who run the gallery. They are fantastic. They've done this Black culture show for Black History Month annually since they've opened their gallery. And I was in it each year, and I'm going to be back in it this year. There's going to be some old pieces and some new pieces. So if you've seen my work before, you may see some of your favorites. You may see a piece you recognize or pieces you don't recognize. So I'm going to urge you, if you're in the area, to come out to the show. You could find most of the information on their website, which is cbartculture.com. And you'll find out all the ins and outs on the venue, which I need to mention that they're taking all the precautions that you may hope they are. So you'll be able to see all the art and appreciate the artists without having to worry about too big of a crowd or what da-da-da-da-da. It's all taken care of. It's for you to come and enjoy some art, and it's going to be a really fun show. So that's it for the updates. The second thing I want to get into very briefly is it's been a bit of a racing theme this month on the podcast. If you recall, a couple of weeks ago, I had on Hilaire and Laura Dameron, who are a husband and wife racing team who run rally racing. Hilaire is the driver, Laura is the co-driver, and together they've won the La Carrera Panamericana race in Mexico and a bunch of other events. And now this week with Amber, it's been a racy month, and that's even better because a lot of racing seasons begin in February. IMSA, NASCAR, a lot of things going on. And last weekend for the Daytona 500, I had a couple of people over to watch the race, and one person was new to NASCAR. She began watching the sport when it was the first thing to come back during the pandemic. And at the time, I was curious if people were going to pick up the sport, being that it was the only thing live on television. And here's some walking proof of it. But having this friend over and experiencing one of her first, she had watched a few other races, but now that the season's starting up and sort of being around a new fan made me think about how I got into the sport. And a lot of people ask me, some artsy little kid from New York City gets into NASCAR. It doesn't seem to all add up. Well, here's a little insight to that. I grew up on Staten Island in New York City, sandwiched between a rough neighborhood and a whole lot of bikers. So I was the opposite of all that. I was a quiet, artsy little kid who didn't find art yet. I was artistic minded, but I didn't really find art yet. At this time, I started watching NASCAR in particular when I was 13 years old. I had gone to a monster truck show, and that ignited my interest in racing and cars because it was monster trucks and ATV races. Fast forward, I had just been looking for something to be mine. I was looking for an escape, really, to be honest with you. And one day, it was in the summer, I turned on the TV and here's a NASCAR race. So I had already been into cars a little bit. Now here's this race, and I remember it very vividly. It was the 2003 Watkins Glen race. It was the first race I watched. I believe Robbie Gordon won that race. If it wasn't Robbie Gordon, it was Tony Stewart. And I was hooked, slowly, but hooked. And for 3 to 4 hours every week, I had me time. It was a time for me when the outside world didn't invade, okay? Because nobody was really into it. I had friends in the neighborhood that I'd play around with, and none of them were really into cars even, forget NASCAR. I had one high school friend, shout out to Dasoon, who was into cars, but he was more into drifting and street racing and sports cars. Very opposite of NASCAR. So because this was my own little thing that I was into and nobody else was into it, not only did it lend itself to be an escape for me from the world around me for a little bit of time each week, but it also got very personal. Because here's one thing about racing that's different than other sports, okay? So you have football, you have basketball, you have baseball, where you know your team, you know the guys on your team. But with racing, it's the same guys every week. Even, you don't have different opponents like in other sports. It's the same guys every week. If there's drama at this track, it's going to carry over to the next week. So it's an ongoing storyline, and you, as the viewer, get to know these drivers, get to know these characters. To bring it all back around, I was very excited to have this friend over who was new to the sport, because I remember how exciting it was for me to be new to the sport, okay? And it's just, it's something that is totally opposite of everything else I do. And because of that, I ran into some personal problems. What do I mean by that? So as I progressed and got more ensconced in visual art and filmmaking and music and all these artsy things, well, guess what? I got news for you. There are not many artists who are into racing, let alone NASCAR. So I didn't lie about being into racing, but I didn't broadcast it either. I didn't volunteer the information, okay? So I just sort of went through life, college, keeping NASCAR under wraps because I was so sick of the stereotypes of Southern, of redneck, of racist, all those things. I knew that the sport wasn't like that, but I was so wrapped up in the court of public opinion that I just sort of played it down. I played my fandom down. I never quit watching. My interest never went down, but I didn't broadcast it. And eventually, I just got sick of it. It was a big part of me, and I was sick of not talking about it. And I began to come out as a NASCAR fan. And do you know what happened? Nothing happened, because my friends still stayed my friends. And truthfully, anybody who was weird or had a problem about it, did I really need to be friends with them to begin with? To be honest about it, made me more authentic to people. It added another weird layer. And then I began to work racing into my art, which has paid off recently. Check it out on Instagram, @Albert Shivers. So without going on too much longer, you can understand a little bit better why I'm so excited for this month of racing and why there have been some race car drivers on the show. And I plan to have more on the show because I think that racing needs more attention. I think the drivers are athletes, first of all. And second of all, it's a lot of fun. And all those stereotypes and all those things, they're gone. It's over. And as you'll see in this upcoming interview, it's unique because men and women compete together. Once you put that helmet on, everybody's equal. What other sport do men and women compete together on the same field or on the same track? It's a tremendous opportunity for equality that I don't think a lot of people realize. Unfortunately, with racing, a lot of pieces have to come together to get into those cars and to be competitive week in and week out. And one little dream that I've had pretty much since I started racing and started following it was that I wanted to see more than one female driver make it to the top levels of NASCAR and be competitive. I'm not necessarily saying they win one race or they win a championship. It would be really cool to see female drivers be able to get in there and compete. Because like I said before, men and women can compete together. You're in a car. It's all about your training off the track and your support off the track to get in there and win. With that, I'm going to close my mouth, and I hope you enjoy my conversation with Amber Balcaen, who, one more thing, a lot of drivers can't say they've done this. She has driven on both dirt tracks and asphalt tracks, which is an incredible amount of skill to have to be able to go back and forth. Just had to say that last thing. Enjoyed this conversation with Amber. It was fantastic. It was so great to have her on the show. I hope you guys get something from it, and you'll hear from me on the other side.
She's got the preferred groove and the advantage out of the corner. Pass complete. Balcaen wrestles the lead away from Bajewski on lap 32. She'll make history tonight. Down the back straightaway for the final time to become the first Canadian-born female driver to win a NASCAR-sanctioned race.
Welcome to the history books, Amber Balcaen.
Hello, Amber. Can you hear me good?
I can hear you.
Good.
Are you wearing my shirt?
Oh, yes, I am, actually.
You are? That's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate
That
you
makes
doing
me
the
so
show.
happy.
I've been, a fan and follower for a while.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. So it's that much more fun to have you on the show.
Well, I really appreciate you supporting me and buying my merchandise. That's amazing.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Definitely. You're welcome.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here. So I guess we'll just jump right into it. You grew up in Winnipeg, Canada, and began running on the dirt up there. Can you talk about your beginnings and how you got interested in running races?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in a racing family. My dad actually still races to this day. He races dirt late models. My mom grew up in a racing family. Her father raced dirt sprint cars. Her brother raced dirt sprint cars. My cousins all race as well. Mm-hmm. So it was grew up in the family. My parents met at the racetrack. My mom had me. I was being bathed in our motorhome at 2 weeks old at the racetrack. So it's really all I've known. And even when I was young, I knew I wanted to race. And after years and years of begging my dad, finally at 10 years old, he said, all right, you want to race? We can get you into go-karts, but you have to work on the go-kart yourself, and you have to raise sponsorship to buy the go-kart too. So for the last 18 years, I've been raising my own sponsorship dollars. And when I was in dirt, I worked on the cars. Now with NASCAR, it's a little different. We have crews that do all that for us, but still a lot of work on the business side.
Understood. So starting out at the age of 10, did you find, even at that young age, that there was a little bit of backlash or anything like that being a female driver?
A A little bit, but I honestly was just focused on getting to race. For me, just getting to race was really exciting, and I just wanted to be the best I could be. You know, my cousins were all very winning drivers, and I wanted to be just as good as them and win as much as them. And so for me, it was just a matter of getting to race and then winning races. And thankfully, I did that in go-karts. I actually grew up racing in Grand Forks, North Dakota, because that was the closest go-kart dirt track to Winnipeg. There's not a lot of oval dirt. Racing isn't very popular in Canada, especially dirt track oval racing. So I actually would drive 2.5 hours every Wednesday. My dad would take me out of school a little early, and we would go to Grand Forks in a pickup truck, put the go-kart in the back, and race there. And then from go-karts, it transitioned into mini sprints, where I did race locally in Winnipeg, and then through North Dakota, Minnesota as well. Then 410 sprint cars, and then transitioned over to the pavement world.
Yes. How was that a difficult transition from dirt to pavement?
Yeah, it was a lot more difficult than I thought. You know, I went from a very lightweight car with open wheels to a big, heavy stock car. And, you know, certain drivers like Tony Stewart, Kyle Larson, they make it look so easy, that transition. But it really is very different. The racing surface obviously is quite different as well. So I think with the pavement racing, it's a lot more technical. You have to be so perfect and so precise, hitting your marks identical every single lap. A little bit more strategy involved, where with dirt is kind of, you know, you ride by the seat of your pants. But there's things I enjoy about both of them. But I think with anything, the more seat time, the more you do it, the better you get at it.
Right. Now, coming from the point of view as an independent driver, I know there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes that isn't always behind the wheel. Can you go into what goes into getting yourself in these rides and getting into these opportunities?
Absolutely. So I kind of am in a unique position, or I'm one of the rarities where most people in racing at the beginning levels are funded by their parents or uncles or grandparents, someone that has wealth or any type of financial backing, where that wasn't the case for me. Even from the go-kart level, mini sprint level, sprint car level, I had to raise my own sponsorship. Now at the NASCAR levels, I'm having to raise hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars to race. So this means not just being a race car driver, but being a businesswoman and figuring out how I can connect with these companies, prove that I can, you know, get them a return on their investment, figuring out what they need in their company, either marketing-wise, exposure-wise, sales-wise, and integrating my racing through their marketing initiatives. So I've really become kind of a problem solver, a marketing manager, just as much as I have been a race car driver. And I spend 99% of my time looking for these sponsors to raise the money to race. And, you know, really only get to race about 1% of the time.
Yeah. So with such a small on-track time, what do? You know, a lot of people have become familiar with iRacing, especially this past year. So there you go. Yeah. How much do you utilize things like that and to get experience in the car almost without being in the car?
Yeah, so to be honest, most of the last year, couple years, I've spent like 99% of my time just finding sponsors. And because I wasn't always certain which series I was going to race, which team I'd race for, if I was racing on dirt or pavement. So to practice without knowing what I was racing, I was like, I don't really know if that's super advantageous. So now that I finally have a new sponsor and I'm racing full time this year, I have been on my simulator, and I'll be on that pretty much every day for at least an hour a day. I try to do 100 laps or at least an hour, just to kind of help get back into the swing of things. I haven't been in a pavement car since 2019, and even then was only in a pavement car a few times. So I definitely have a lot of work to do on the simulator until my first race, but then luckily I have a full season ahead of me. So just got to keep learning every race, and luckily I'll have a lot of seat time. So just building on that momentum.
Let's transition. So on the track, every driver has to worry about getting into incidents and getting into wrecks. How do you personally, I know you've been through some incidents, how do you bounce back? What gets you back in that car to the person who's outside of this world of racing?
So wrecking and racing is inevitable. It's not a matter of if, but when. Crashing is a part of the sport, whether it's flipping or just hitting a wall. It's inevitable. So I really don't think about it that much. It's kind of at the back of our job, hitting our marks, getting the guy in front of us, keeping the guys behind us. So as far as wrecking, that's not really at the forefront of our mind. When it does happen, it's part of it. We do what we can do to heal and be prepared and rehab for when it comes time to get back in the car. This past year I had the worst crash that I've ever had in my racing career, and it took me 2.5 months to recover.
Will relinquish that second position. Oh, we got one up and over in second position. Oh, we got one up and over.
I was in the hospital for 3 days. It was a very scary one, but again, my love and my passion for the sport kind of conquers all that. So once I got back out on the track, the fear kind of went away, and you remember why you love doing it.
Yeah. Now, you also do a lot of work off track, away from the car. You do a lot of inspirational writings and talks. You're very motivational. How does that work into your racing, and what makes you reach out like that?
The reason I share all that is because I've had to overcome so much adversity through my racing journey. I've had to overcome so many obstacles. I've went through mental health issues, being depressed from racing. Racing has helped bring me confidence, but it's also broken my heart. And having to be self-made and have done this all on my own and not be funded by my parents, I've learned so much, and I've had to figure out so much on the business side, in the personal development way, and then just as an athlete, going through the ups and downs of sports. I've learned so much, and I've had to be extremely persistent in my goals, and my self-development journey and my motivation and inspiration, I guess, comes from that. And basically, I just want to be that person that other people can go to and say, if Amber can do this, I can do this too. And all the mistakes I've made and the lessons I've learned and the failures I've had, I want to be able to use that and help others so that they don't have to go through what I went through. And that's just what I'm passionate about. I'm a very emotional and sensitive person and passionate person. And so if I can utilize my lessons to help others, then I think I need to do that. And frankly, I feel I have a responsibility to do that. And I'm very lucky to have racing as a platform that I do, in the social media platform that I do to share my experiences and help try to raise others up and, show them that there's a lot of potential in us all, and we should all try to fulfill that potential.
Balcaen's got the edge on Bajewski. Plummeting into turn number 3, side by side, 2 abreast out of the corner. Balcaen looking to take the win away from Karl Bajewski.
I really think, the bigger the goal, or the harder the goal, the longer it's going to take. And that's pretty obvious for me. I'm 28 years old. I'm not really considered young in the sport, which is crazy because 28 isn't that old.
Right.
But
Yeah.
It's still considered maybe a little bit older in sport when you see, these 18 and 19-year-olds coming into like the truck series.
Mm-hmm.
So, but for me, it's just the age thing doesn't matter anymore, because as long as I'm going to achieve my goal, I can achieve my goal. And I realize that what I'm trying to do is really difficult, but it doesn't mean I can't get there. I just have to keep working. And it might take a little bit longer than someone who does get into the sport right away because their family is able to financially get them there. But I like to think that all the skills that I've learned and developed through these years are only going to help me at the end. Sometimes if you receive a bunch of success right away, then you don't necessarily know how to keep it or build upon it. Where when you're grinding and working and learning all the skills and learning all the lessons and learning how to be resourceful and figure things out on your own, I think it builds for a better solid foundation overall. So you can just keep building on that. It's not an overnight success. It's taken me longer to get where I need to go, but I think it will help me last longer in the sport as well. If that makes sense. I don't know if I explained that right.
It does make sense. Now, you teased it a little bit before, but you have a new announcement about your future this coming year in racing. Let's hear about it.
Yeah, so I was finally able to secure a brand new primary sponsor. So they will be on board for all 40 of my races. They'll be announcing this week that there's a brand new NASCAR development program called Bill McAnally's Drivers Academy. Okay. So I will be part of that NASCAR development program, racing an ARCA car in this series for 40 races with Bill McAnally. And then also this gives us the opportunity to get some ARCA West races as well. So hope to be doing a little bit of ARCA races as well as this NASCAR development program, the BMR Drivers Academy. But yeah, I have a new primary sponsor that's helped backing me for this. I have a sponsor that has been with me for 5 years that was here with me again, Glenn McLeod & Sons. My new sponsor is Icon Direct. They are an RV parts supplier out of my home province of Manitoba, which is really cool. So I have 2 sponsors, both from Canada, both backing me. I'll be racing out in California for Bill McAnally. So I'm very, very excited to be racing full time again this year.
Great. No, that's great news. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
That's really cool. My last question in closing is a very simple one, which is that, what is it about racing that makes you keep coming back? Like, to put in all this work, what is it about to you personally that makes you do it?
There's a couple aspects of it that has, made me never want to give up. And the first one is I really believe in my potential as a driver. And I love racing cars. I love being behind the wheel. I love racing. The feeling you get, the adrenaline, the excitement. And when you put on that helmet, you're not thinking about anything else. You're not thinking about what problems you might have at work or relationships or anything like that. All you're focused on is driving that car, hitting your marks, trying to win that race. And that is just the best feeling in the world. It's such an escape from reality that I've never experienced that in any other part of my life. And I'm addicted to that feeling for sure. And then the other side of it is just wanting to be successful in the sport, to show others that you don't need to come from money. You don't need to have all the resources. You don't need to have all the tools in the toolbox to be successful. If you're willing to put in the work, be dedicated to your dreams, create good habits, be disciplined, and be persistent at it, and just keep putting one foot forward in front of the other, then you can achieve your dreams, and anything is possible. And I just want to be that example for people.
Great. I'm sure you also find that there's a lot of young girls who are looking to get into racing that I'm sure look up to you. Yeah,
that's another big thing too, is I want to be that positive role model for other girls. And I feel that I'm responsible to, uphold a good image for them and be a good example and lead by example and be a leader and say this is hopefully the good way to go about this. And not only that, but help give back to them, help them raise up the ranks as well. I'm part of a group called Shift Up Now, and we're there for not only females, but any drivers who want to get into racing or who maybe just getting into racing and need to learn a little bit more of where to go or how to find more sponsors or what series to go in. So we're that resource and that point of contact for anyone who needs to learn more about racing. So any way that I can help give back and help people to make it a little bit easier for them than it was for me, then that excites me too.
Great. And where can people find you online and social media?
They can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook at Amber Balcaen 10.
Okay, great. Well, Amber, congratulations on your announcement for this year. I wish you a ton of luck on the track, and I'll definitely be pulling for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on, and thank you for buying my merchandise. I really appreciate that.
No, you're welcome. I'll rep you when I can.
I appreciate it. We'll have some really cool new shirts out this year, so you'll have to check that out.
Awesome. I will. I'll steer people in that direction.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber. Well, how about that? Amber Balcaen, racing driver. It was fantastic to have her on the show. I'm so thankful that she gave some time to be on. It was a great, insightful conversation we had. And don't forget, you could find this episode and a whole lot more on all major podcast platforms and YouTube. February 27th, 28th, Black Culture Art Show, Create and Be Art Studio. And don't forget, you can follow Amber in the ARCA series this season on Fox. They televise a lot of the races, so you can follow Amber. You could also find her on Instagram at Amber Balcaen 10, as well as on Facebook and on TikTok, all under the same username. Go support her. And you can find out what I'm up to on Instagram at Albert Shivers and on the YouTube channel simply titled Albert Shivers. It's all very easy for you. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week and your weekend. Take care of yourself and take care of somebody else.